This emporium is an Aladdin's cave for budding guitarists. Today, the guitar is one of the most popular of all musical instruments, but when the star of our story started his career, the musical establishment regarded it as a poor relation. The man I'm after tonight became this country's first professional guitar player, and he earned international acclaim from some of the world's greatest musicians. This edition of the Big Red Book contains the story of a child prodigy. A South London boy, he loved the classics, he loved jazz. He was given his first guitar at the age of 11, and by the time he was 15, was playing in concerts and performing music for feature films. Tonight he's at the Queen Elizabeth Hall here on the South Bank, giving a special concert to celebrate his 50th anniversary as a performer. The fact that he can still play to packed audiences in this his Golden Jubilee year is a tribute not only to his skills, but also to his determination. Just over 10 years ago, a car crash almost robbed him of the ability to play, but within months he was back at the concert hall, and these days he's playing as well as ever. And let's hope he enjoys our little tune. I don't have to say this is a very special occasion, and I am here to tell you that there are a few very special personal tributes that are waiting to be made. As I say, tonight, Julian Bream, CBE, this is your life. We have a studio waiting with friends and more surprises, so with a car big enough to take you and the guitar, if you would like to join me.
Do you think I could ask you for a lift?
A bit pointless if you don't.
Well, actually, it's so hard getting a taxi around here. So I would be delighted.
As you've seen, another enthusiastic audience here, friends and colleagues like Stanislav Heller, who's come from France, and family, including your nephew Noel, flown in from Canada, and of course your partner June Axon. All here for the story of the Battersea boy who defied the musical establishment to make the guitar a recognized instrument and played his way through hard times to international stardom. And this is Julian Bream at work. That last performance saw you teamed with another famous guitarist who has something for the record. Your good friend, John Williams.
I want to say that it's been the greatest honour and pleasure, not just to be your friend, but your professional colleague sometimes.
Yeah.
To be your doubles partner. You're also, I want to say, on behalf of not just the general public, but us guitarists, that your dedication and love of the instrument are an inspiration for us, really. You're a great guitarist, a great musician, and a great fella, and we salute you on this wonderful occasion.
Yeah, well, that's very nice of you, John. John, thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, now we're going to hear from someone who's been an admirer of yours for more than 40 years, man and boy. For much of that time, he was the face of the BBC at the proms, Richard Baker.
I well remember the first time we met, Julian. I was a baby announcer on the third programme. Remember the third programme, Michael? And you came along to give a recital. You were about 17 and a very cheeky Cockney lad, quite a character even in those days. The recital was wonderful, of course, and now you're one of the world's best ever guitarists. It's very interesting, I think, that in these days when a lot of leading musicians are playing unplugged, you've never needed amplification. You've always been quite electric enough.
Thank you, Dickie. Well, Julian Alexander Bream, this is your life. You were born at home in Bolingbroke Grove, Battersea, South London, on July the 15th, 1933. The first of 4 children for Henry Bream, a commercial artist and keen musician, and his wife, Violet. And you'll be very interested to know that I was born in Battersea at the same time, and my mother's name is Violet.
Isn't that extraordinary? Were you born near the dog's home?
Very close. Yes.
Or the power station?
Very close. My granny's house. Anyway, there you are with your parents and your sister on an early holiday. Soon you were having to hit the road without your parents because with the outbreak of World War II, like many other London kids, you were evacuated. You and your sister were sent to Shropshire.
And even there, Julian, you were stringing me along.
With your brothers Tony and Paul, your sister Jan. So, Jan, your big brother played you up, did he?
Well, you see, I probably played him up, actually.
You were very characterful. You had a very pertinent and strong character.
Yes.
And if you didn't want to do something, you didn't.
I didn't do it, Julian.
That's right.
But, Julian, you've added so much to our life, you know, so much colour, and we've enjoyed having you as a brother. It's been fantastic, and my sons love it too.
Yeah. Well, you've been a wonderful sister,
Oh,
Jack.
bless you, Julian. That's
And
marvellous.
my brothers, too.
Look at that.
Look, there are the two of you and Jan, getting your hands dirty down on the farm. And last year you went to Wales to give a concert, and you went back to the Shropshire farm that had been your wartime haven, and you spotted a figure at work in the field.
I recognised you at once.
Now aged 78, the son of the farmer who took you in, Jack Hughes. Jack, come and join us. How did you recognise Julian after such a long time?
Oh, I recognised him at once when he came to the farm.
But you knew what he'd been up to all these years,
Yes,
didn't you?
yes, I've been watching him on telly.
Yeah. And you found something on the farm after
That's
all
right.
these years. What was that?
Oh, a bit of a menu for him. Remember that?
Ah,
National Savings Book.
yes.
In your name.
That's your pay when you was at the farm.
How extraordinary. But I never got my money back. I've got it now. 15 shillings. Terrific.
Good pay in them days.
It was good pay, you're right. Well, that is wonderful.
Well,
That's
you
terrific.
need never work again. Jack, thank you very
Jack,
much.
why don't you...
No, he's got his own
No,
seat.
I got
Oh, I'm very sorry being bossy. Great to see it.
Thank you. Well, the seeds of a career that spanned 5 decades took root in the front room of the family home in Hampton, Middlesex. During the war, your father worked as a draftsman in a munitions factory.
No.
Oh.
He was a tool maker.
A tool maker?
Yes.
Can I borrow your pen?
Yes.
Oh, I'll check it out. Right, he was a tool maker in a munitions factory.
Yes. No. He made jigs for aircraft.
Oh, what was his name? But he was earning extra money in a dance club.
Yeah, that's right. Not much.
Thank goodness for that. He started to teach you the piano, but you had
No,
your...
he never taught me the piano. He taught me the rudiments of jazz guitar playing. My father played this jazz guitar and had this little dance band. When he was away, I used to hold the guitar and just bang the strings, and I have the radio on. And then my father came home early from work one day and saw me with his best guitar, you see, banging away at it, and I thought, oh my God, I'd be in trouble. But his reaction was extraordinary. He just said, well, do you enjoy playing that? And I said, yes. But he said, you ought to learn. And that's how I started.
Fair enough.
But that's not
Well, in a roundabout way, yes. But it says here that your ambition was really fired when he played you this record by the famous gypsy jazz musician Django Reinhardt. Playing alongside the great Django on that record was another legend, and it was a dream come true for you when years later you played with him. Now aged 89, he sends this message from his home in Paris, jazz violinist Stéphane Grappelli.
You play with me at the Albert Hall for my 70th birthday. It's nearly 20 years ago. I hope you remember. And I will remember you're talented for that evening. It was a joy for me to listening to you when you play this beautiful music of Bach. Then you managed to play some jazz music with us. I'm glad to wish you all the very best for this. That is your live program. And as a matter of fact, now in my next visit in England, I hope to see you. Au revoir. My dear Julian.
Thank you, Stefan. On your 11th birthday, Julian, your father gives you your first classical guitar.
Yes.
There you are together, you and your guitar.
Yeah.
Well, a year later, you start Saturday morning lessons for juniors at the Royal College of Music. And when class was over, you would cross Battersea Bridge to a very different venue, your granny's pub.
It was a beer house, really. No spirits. And there was this wonderful, terrible, really, upright piano with most of the ivories off, to come unglued.
Yeah.
And I used to play little bits of Chopin and a few popular tunes.
And you got paid for it?
I got biscuits, and it gave me some feeling of audience participation.
But by this time it was the guitar that had become the love of your life, and your father wrote to the BBC telling them about his son, the prodigy. His faith was rewarded when you got your first radio broadcast. That was January the 7th, 1947, on Children's Hour. You were 13. Still, finances were tight, and it was a continuing struggle to win wider recognition for the guitar, despite your broadcast and your first recital at Cheltenham Art Gallery. But in December 1947 came another breakthrough. The greatest living guitarist of the day, Segovia, came to London. He grants you an audience. You play for him in his hotel room, which must have been a nerve-wracking experience.
It certainly was, yeah.
Did you play well?
Badly, terribly badly.
Did he like what you did there?
No. Right.
Nevertheless,
It was awful.
in 1947, aged 14 by now, and still at Rectory School in Hampton, you head off to Ealing Film Studios to play background music for the Stuart Granger, Flora Robson movie Saraband for Dead Lovers.
$9,000. 20,000. I'll match him. 20,000.
Another star of that film only discovered your off-screen role years later.
Although I didn't know him then, the child prodigy became a lifelong family friend.
The distinguished actress Jill Balkan. Jill, your father, Michael Balkan, ran the studios, of course, but you never actually met Julian at that time.
No, I didn't meet him then. I met him later, and we had terrific times doing recitals together with my husband, C. Day Lewis. what I really want to say most of all is that I'll never be able to thank you for your generosity in offering to play at Cecil's funeral. It got me through the worst day of my life, and it was your doing.
Jill, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jill.
Well, by the time that film was released, you'd applied for a full-time place at the Royal College of Music. And after your interview, the principal wrote glowingly at the top of your application, "Admit, no exam, no fee." Now, you were to study piano and composition, not the guitar, though.
No.
They didn't recognise it.
Well, there was no, in that time, there was no chair for the guitar at the Royal College. And in fact, most people didn't consider the guitar really a serious vehicle for classical music.
But one of the first to recognise your talents and the potential of the guitar at this time was a musician who wrote a serenade especially for you and later a concerto. One of our top composers, he won an Oscar for his score for the film Bridge on the River Kwai, Sir Malcolm Arnold.
The first piece I wrote, of course, was when you were about 14 or so, was the serenade for strings and guitar, which was for an amateur orchestra. And you came over, I said, "Good God, are you really Julian Bream?" He said, "Yes, mate, of course I am." I said, "Well, how on earth do you play the guitar?" I said, "I just strum it a bit. And I love you very dearly, and wherever you are, I wish you well."
Thank you, Sir Malcolm. Tony, when Julian was still making his way, your father had a special dream for him, didn't
Well,
he?
it was to come to the London platform, sort of, musical platform of the Wigmore Hall, or for the first, objective, the Queen's Hall had been sort of destroyed, so that was his hope, I imagine.
Well, the dream came true, but sadly your father didn't live to see your London debut at the Wigmore Hall in 1951. A year later, you leave the Royal College and you receive your call-up papers for army service. With the help of your friend and patron Tom Goff, you get a transfer from the Pay Corps to the Royal Artillery Band to play the electric guitar.
But Bombardier Bream, you did have trouble keeping time.
Now viola player with the world-renowned Delmy Quartet, your old sparring partner, Johnny Underwood. Johnny, I thought the timing was Julian's speciality.
Well, musically, yes. Musically, yes. But other things, we weren't so good, were we?
No, not too good.
We did have, though, these alarm clocks.
Yes,
now,
three.
That's
Three of them.
Three of them.
On saucers.
Very
They put
nasty.
them on- yeah, that's
very
right.
nasty things. They got assaulted regularly. They got slung across the room. In the end, none of them worked. We were always late, but never mind.
That's right.
Your timing's still perfect.
Johnny, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, while you're in the army, you still manage to fit in some private concerts, and your Austin van comes in handy, even serving as a bed when you couldn't afford a room. Once back in Civvy Street, you're soon crossing the Atlantic, and in 1958 you play for the first time in New York. You've been back there almost every year since. As your international reputation grows, you work with another musician making a name for himself, Yehudi Menuhin.
I well recall our first meetings with Benjamin Britten and Peter Pears, Ben and Peter, as we will always remember them, at their festival in Aldeburgh. They knew a good musician when they saw and heard one, and you've lived up to their highest estimation. You've committed yourself to your calling with a devotion, with a sense of adventure, with a desire to get to know every kind of music. And you have given us all a very great example and of great inspiration.
Thank you, Lord Henry. In the 50s, with your friend actress Peggy Ashcroft, you give poetry and music recitals, and you persuade some more great composers to write for you, including Benjamin Britten, William Walton, and Lennox Berkeley. In 1960, you formed the Julian Bream Consort, featuring another of your passions, the Elizabethan guitar, the lute. a lovely sound. In 1964, you were awarded the OBE. Over the years, you devote a great deal of your time to transcribing 16th century music and increase the repertoire available to modern players of the lute and guitar. You record more than 40 albums, often with producer the late Jimmy Burnett and engineer John Bauer, who is here. Your achievements are acknowledged by television's top arts programs, including the prestigious series Monitor. Putting you in the spotlight was award-winning producer Humphrey Burton. Humphrey, you have a tale to tell, I hope.
It's quite inevitable we would make a film about you because you were kind of the #1 British musical export in those days. You were the kind of Margot Fontaine of the guitar. Well, all around the world, they knew your name. It was absolutely marvellous. And the way you inspired people like William Walton and Benjamin Britten, they didn't write frilly things. They wrote really great music.
Yeah.
It must be great for you to feel that you've inspired composers of that ilk to write music.
Yes, I'm very pleased about that. And I've performed our pieces a lot, so they must be fairly pleased too.
Well, they're both up there now.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
You went on to establish your own music festival in your home village, Semley, in Wiltshire. But one evening in 1984, something happened that could have destroyed everything that you worked for. You were driving home in your open-top sports car when disaster strikes. And with your total recall, I'm sure you remember what happened.
These little cars, there's just no room in them. So you've got to drive them like this, you see. And I had my arm outside of the door. And as I was turning into this bridge, the car somehow skewed like that. And I think there was oil on the road, but we'd had a dry summer. And I hit my elbow, a terrific blow, on the side of the wall.
Well, I can pick it up there because you were rushed to Salisbury Hospital and your most serious injuries were fractured bones around your elbow, which of course needed surgery. Astonishingly, you asked for a local anaesthetic so you could see what the surgeon was doing as he screwed in a metal plate. But after all this, you were told that you would never play the guitar again. Amazingly, you were able to perform again just 3 months after the operation. But you still needed extensive physiotherapy, and the expert who helped you to recover is Kate Bray. Kate, was Julian a good patient?
I can't really take the credit for his recovery from that initial operation because it's his determination and dedication and hours of practice I know you put in, keeping the same position over the guitar, which tends to lead to postural problems as well.
That's right.
That's made the success of the elbow that it won.
Well, good work all round, as
Yes,
they say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She's been very good to me.
In 1987, after 2 marriages, you were living the single life in Wiltshire when June comes into your life.
Yes.
And one of the many fascinating things you learn, June, is that when a guitarist cuts his fingernails, it's a science in its own right, isn't that so?
Yes, there seems to be a moment when the nails have to be cut. Because apparently if they're long and thin, the sound is quite different on a guitar.
It's awful.
Yes. So Julian actually I think he cuts his fingernails about 3 days before he's going to perform. Is that right?
Not
Suppose you
quite.
break your fingernails.
I tell you when I do it. Once a week, I have a cup of tea on a Sunday morning, and I listen to Alistair Cook, Letter from America, and I do my nails.